The Maasai tribe of East Africa, who mostly live in Kenya and Tanzania, are known around the world both for their gifts as pastoral herders of cattle who reject the more stationary living of many of the world's people, and also as powerful warriors. It is said that when the Maasai people greet one another, including when the warriors greet one another, it's common to ask, Inosu Luman, or how is everything? Much the way we do in this country. But whereas in our culture, we might respond, good, no matter how things are going, and then move on, that response won't cut it in the Maasai culture. To truly respond to this question amongst the Maasai people, you have to tell of everything going on in your family since the last time you met the person you're speaking with. This in part helps serve the purpose of spreading news amongst a migratory people, which makes sense. But it's also said that it's important to follow up your initial greeting with the question, how are the children? Kasiria Ningera. And it's said that the hope of response that you'll receive and the hope that you would be able to give to someone is all the children are well. All the children are well. Children and cattle are said to define value for the Maasai people. And it's important to ask about the cattle as well. Don't get me wrong. My research hasn't clarified enough for me around the cultural or linguistic context to know for sure what this greeting means to the Maasai people and how to exactly translate it for ourselves. But it does seem powerful to me that the question is, how are the children, not how are your children? And the response, even some say by people without children, is all the children are well, not my children are well. And this story, if you Google this story, you'll find it told with much less nuance than this. And I do not know all of the full nuance and complexity to what is true about this greeting for the Maasai people. I don't have a personal relationship with that culture. But the story, I think, no matter what, still speaks to both the importance that the Maasai people put on the well-being of their children, and also on the shared responsibility that the adult Maasai people feel towards all children in their communities, not just the ones that they have personally parented. And how are the children? All the children are well. If I ask myself, and how is your child, Abby? I feel very grateful to be able to answer, at least this morning, this week, my child is well. Constant lingering daycare, cold, and teeth coming and grumpiness notwithstanding. But when I ask myself, and how are the children? And think of the children in this religious community, and the children in my neighborhood in West Philadelphia, the children in all of Philadelphia, this city with the highest level of deep poverty of any big city in America, I cannot honestly say all the children are well. When a dear mentor of mine and many, many other ministers and lay people in our faith tradition as well, Reverend Rob Eller Isaacs, passed away this past summer, dozens of our colleagues shared tributes to him online. And one of the sayings that he taught many of us and that colleagues shared again and again in their tributes to him was, there's no such thing as other people's children. There's no such thing as other people's children. And I programmed this service called There's No Such Thing as Other People's Children over the summer before I was pregnant. And I realize that this may now feel sneaky, letting you all know last week that I'm pregnant, announcing instead on this week being like, surprise, and you're all responsible. That's not what I mean, and I'm sorry if it feels like that. What's true is that I doubt Rob actually came up with the phrase, but it continues to resonate with me and with many others. It resonates so strongly, both because my faith in the interdependent web of all life helps me feel the inherent truth that there's no such thing as other people's children. There's no such thing as other people. We are all interrelated. But also because of how Rob himself lived out that belief. So I'm roughly the age of Rob's biological children. And I got to know his daughter, Jessie, and his wife and co-minister, Jan, through national UU youth leadership stuff when I was a teenager, long before I got to know him in my adult years. But as an adult, I was privileged to be one of these dozens of junior clergy that he and Jan took under their wings over their many decades in ministry. And even when Rob was at the highest levels of leadership in our national association, even when he was co-leading a large congregation, even when he had many others seeking him out for advice and support and counsel and reflection, and he had his own challenges in ministry, Rob always answered my calls. Rob always found time for me. And he was not perfect. I don't know if any of you actually know him or know of him by reputation. He was a complicated man, and he could be polarizing and he could be arrogant. And I would say that to his face, otherwise I would not preach it. He would say that to your faces as well. But maybe you too have had a mentor or a colleague or a family member like this in your life, someone who is difficult at times, but also someone who made time for you, makes time for you. Whatever is happening in your life, despite many others clamoring for their attention, despite their own challenges that they are dealing with. I didn't see Rob as a father figure, and I didn't see myself as a child figure to him. That wasn't our relationship. But I did always feel a sense of belonging to him and to Jan, his wife and co-minister. This belonging wasn't possessive, though. It didn't even really feel personal. Part of what is so deeply ingrained in both Rob and Jan is their sense of belonging to something greater, to the vocation of ministry and to the faith of Unitarian Universalism, yes, but also to the capital L love, which is closer than breath and larger than the multiverse, that love which holds us and never lets us go. When Rob and Jan claimed you as one of their own, they were claiming you not to be part of a special clique. They were claiming you for that capital L love. And whether you were their colleague or their family or friend or their congregant, you could feel that love. It's one of my deepest wishes that you all feel that love from me in my ministry. New members, I hope you feel that capital L love here in this community. When Rob said that there's no such thing as other people's children, he meant all children belong to each of us, and all children belong to that love which flows within, among, and beyond us all. In our current culture, parents and other primary guardians of children face an uphill battle, right? And can I get an amen from any parents who are in this room? Yeah, Hannah's like, amen. We both have babies, for those of you who don't know us very well. Much of US culture puts the nuclear family on a pedestal, which can make parents feel like they should be able to do it all alone, to care for and raise children without needing a massive amount of help and support from family and friends and their wider community and society as a whole. And I know that I certainly fall prey to this feeling a lot. Shame when I don't feel like I can do it all alone. Fear that I'm not good enough when a sick kid and sleepless nights and my aching back and the bills I don't know how to pay get the better of me. And though my partner Kai and I have wonderful family, my incredible in-laws are actually here today. Thanks for being here, Sandy and Ellen. And my amazing mother is here with us online, as she usually is. Hi, Mom. None of our family actually live nearby. And we've not really figured out yet how to ask our friends for the kind of help that would lighten our load. And before any of you feel like it's your job to lighten our load, it is very appropriate for ministers to not expect this of our congregants. So do not feel like you have to offer me or Hannah any of your support afterwards. You give us a great deal in an appropriate way. But it's still hard to ask for the people who we rely on for help. And beyond our own struggles to ask for help, many in our culture struggle to know how to show up in helpful ways with other children. On the playground, when a child that I don't know is crying, when is the right time to comfort them and when it might be seen as inappropriate? When another child hits my kid, or when my kid steals a toy from another kid, do I focus only on comforting or correcting my own child's behavior? Or should I also try to comfort or hold the other child accountable? When a child seems alone or without adequate adult supervision, when do I intervene with the child? When do I speak to the other adults? This gets ever more complex when you don't know the others in your community very well, and when there's a lot of cultural diversity in your community as well, and you don't know the values of the other families that you're sharing the playground with. Believing that there's no such thing as other people's children is much, much easier to do than the actual practice of taking ownership and responsibility for the larger community of children in our lives. But what I know is that it's essential that we do. There's a number of well-regarded studies and schools of thought that speak to the importance of each adult knowing and assuming some kind of shared responsibility for the children in their neighborhood, not only as a way to build a sense of strength and support for the children themselves, but also as a way to reduce violence and crime in their neighborhoods. Though we know that the roots of heightened violence and crime in some neighborhoods arise primarily from systemic racial and economic oppression and divestment of social institutions, one of the things that can change the picture for all neighborhoods is neighbors knowing one another, and in particular, neighbors knowing the children in their neighborhood and the families of those children. I grew up in a neighborhood without that many kids my age, so I don't actually have childhood memories or nostalgia of knowing many adults who lived near me, but I know that many of you do. And I feel so grateful at this point in my life to know that many of the people on my block in my current home are getting to know Nova, my son Nova. Nova is going to grow up with the racial privilege of being white and with the class privilege of having fairly highly educated middle-class parents. But I know that his life is going to be infinitely enriched by the relationships he has with our neighbors of all kinds of races and economic backgrounds on our block. Us believing and practicing this truth that there's no such thing as other people's children transforms the lives of this wider circle of children who are held in deeper belonging and capital L love. And yes, sometimes they're held in discipline and rules that their parents don't enforce. But they are held in a network of adults who are invested in their well-being. And each of us needs more than one or two people who are invested in our well-being. We need a wider network. Believing that there are no other people's children enhances the children's lives, but it enhances our lives as well. Each of us, whether we're a biological parent or a proud, permanent auntie or uncle or teacher or neighbor or church buddy to a child, knows that every single child is precious and unique and holy. Can I get an amen? It can sometimes be easier to see the inherent worth of dignity of children than adults, right? Can I get an amen to that? It can sometimes be easier to love children than adults, right? The closer we are to children, the more we claim each child as our own, each child as a member of our human family, each child as inherently worthy, as inherently deserving of love, the more we are awakened to the ways that each person, regardless of their age, is part of our human family. That each person is inherently worthy. Each person is inherently deserving of love. When our hearts are softened by caring for children, they stay softer. They help us be more caring and loving towards other adults, even when those other adults irk us. When we love children, it's also easier for us to see that we too are deserving of love. So we're in a season where nearly every single business is trying to get us to buy stuff, right? And many of them are going to use images of cute children to sell things to us because they know it works. It can feel like consumerism is what this season is supposed to all be about. But we also know that underneath those consumerist messages are the truths put forward in ritual and story and song by some of the great religious traditions of the world. Pagan traditions in this part of the world at this time of the year tell us that even as it is getting colder, we know the winter solstice is approaching, which means the days are going to get longer. The light is going to return. That even amidst these difficult times, hope is still on the horizon. Hope is always on the horizon. The Jewish tradition of Hanukkah reminds us that even following massive destruction, that when a community comes together, miracles can happen. The restoration of beauty and holiness is possible when a community comes together. And the Christian tradition of Christmas reminds us, as the Unitarian religious educator Sophia Lyon-Foss wrote, that each night a child is born is a holy night, a time for singing, a time for wondering, a time for worshiping. My friends, may we glean from these traditions, from these ancient stories, new meaning in our own lives. May we know that wherever there are children, there is holiness. That when community comes together around a common challenge, that is when the miracles happen. May we never forget that even in the midst of whatever challenge we are facing, that hope is always about to return. May we believe, and more importantly, may we act out that truth that there is no such thing as other people's children. When children in our lives need us, may we make time for them. May we be there for them. We belong to each other. We belong to love. Amen, and blessed be.
Hi, I'm Reverend Hannah Capaldi.
And I'm Reverend Abby Tennis. We are the ministers at the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, where our mission is to awaken love and justice in our lives and in the world.
We're so grateful that you watched, and we hope that the sermon connected with your soul.
We also want to invite you to join us for a live worship service every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can always find the link to that service on our website at www.philauu.org. In these services, you'll hear words like you've just heard, and you also get a chance to greet one another, pray together, sing together, and we even hold a virtual coffee hour after services to get a chance to greet some new and old friends.
If you want to support the mission of this community and you feel moved to give, you can do so by going to the website that Reverend Abby just mentioned. You can find that link below, or you can text 215-709-5095 and follow the prompts to give.
If someone in your life needs to hear these words today, we encourage you to share this video. And again, thank you so much for watching.
We hope to see you soon.